And one of the questions I get a lot is how much thread or sinew should I need to do a particular cut, particular stitching. So what I'm going to tell you is I've given you plenty of sinew here. It's always best to have a little bit too much than the need to do this again. So we're going to do 5 times the amount that's one circle here. So we're going to get it to come loose here. Here we go. And we're just going to lay our thread, our sinew, around kind of where the, loosely here around where the holes are. And then we're going to do at least 5 times that much. So say that's 1 time around. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, and we'll just do a little bit more than 5. And we can cut that with a scissor or your knife, either one. And this artificial sinew kind of has some wax on it, so if you kind of rub it a little bit, it'll get that wax to kind of gel all the fibers together. And you can even spin it a little bit. I suggest spinning it after you've threaded it. The needle eyes are flat, so if you roll this into a circle here to start with, it's going to be harder to thread this. So what I suggest you do is take your thread and pull it down like that. I don't know if y'all saw what I did. Basically, you're laying your needle on top of it and pulling it underneath there, and that flattens it down thin like. And then we're just going to thread this and get it to go through the eye like that. And then to put your thread on your needle on your thread so it won't come off, you don't tie knots or anything. All you do is you take your needle, the point of your needle, and you go back through your thread through the middle of it, and leaving about the length of the needle at the end here, more or less. Just hit the center of it so you're in the middle of your thread. Then you pull your loose tail end across, and then you pull up your remaining, and then we twist it, and that makes you a good attachment for your, and smooth it out, and so that makes you a good attachment for your needle. It won't come off, at least not very easily. As I pulled on just the thread part, it did come off. So we're gonna twist it a little bit more, but that'll make it work for you. So we're going to do that at both ends. So we're just going to do that again, and we're just going to flatten it and then get it to go through our needle, and then poke it through the middle so it's in the middle of our thread. Pull it down and then pull it back the other way, and then we're just going to roll it, get that wax to bite on it again. Alright, so there's our 2 needles attached. If you have a candle or some beeswax, it's a good idea to go ahead and rub this a little bit more with it if you want. That'll make your tail stay down a little bit better, but not necessary. This will work. And so we've got our 2 needles on here. Now, how do you saddle stitch? You pick a starting point, you put your needle through. I generally go 3 holes from a corner, and you pull your threads up, your needles up to where it's even, like this. And then I'm going to go down through that, and I'm going to wrap my needle around the thread that I just poked through and put it back through And what that's doing when you're wrapping it around like that, that is tying a knot. So we want to make sure that they're still pretty even at this point so that we get started right. Okay, so we're going to go back to this side. I always start from the outside and go in, and we've done our first stitch. We're going this direction on our straight line there, and we're going to come back around, and we're going to take this. You take the one that you didn't use to poke through, and you wrap it around, and then you poke it back through the hole. I'll do this and show y'all. And then you pull it up tight, and that ties a knot inside each of the holes. And so we want that to go down flat, be tight each time. Now we've gone to our corner here. We're going to go back through, going this way now, and then we're going to come all the way around, and when we get to our corner, we'll come across that last hole and then back down 3. So basically it's just, a lot of this is just repeating it, but what you're doing is you're tying in this starting point. You're tying it in. You're going back across twice. So we're going to poke this back down in our hole here. And we're going to come across and loop our thread and poke it back down into the hole it came out of. There we go. And pull that up tight, and just going to continue that going around. Alright, I've got around here to where we're about 3 holes from the end. So we're going to keep on going, get all the way to the end. But basically you're going around and around in this last little bit, trying to get your thread attached in here well. And we're going to tie it this time. Let's say it gets tough once you get them in there. And so we're going to just tie these 2 ends together with a couple of overhand knots and trim off the excess. And most of the time I'll go ahead and burn that just a little bit. Let's see if I got all right. We'll just burn these ends a little bit to kind of gel them together. Not a whole lot. Like that. Try to keep your thread off the floor. Alright, so we've burnt those ends a little bit. That does leave a little bit of a knot, so what we're going to do is we're going to take and just kind of beat down on that knot just a little bit with our hammer, just to set it. Not a whole lot, and you can actually go all the way around your thread if you choose, and beat down on it. And that kind of sets your threads down into your leather a little bit, and but that's what it looks like on the back, and that's what it looks like on the inside. And if you see your scratch mark still, which sometimes will happen when we scratch the little line for our threads to go kind of around, you can go back over with your dye, and your dye will actually dye your threads as well. So if you like the look of it being a lighter color, which I do, I don't generally dye that, but you know, if you want it to blend a little more, you can go back over and dye your threads. But that's your belt loop sewn on. The next part is to take your whelp and to glue this on. This is important, so you want to take a few minutes. I know we've drawn lines in here and all that, making sure you're getting it the right way. You don't have it turned around upside down or something like that. So make sure you're getting it the right way. take a minute or two and make sure that your knife still looks like it's going to fit in here. We've got our knife over here. Make sure our knife's looking like it's going to fit with it squeezed together, that we don't have too much welt going on here. And you can kind of squeeze it together with your fingers. That's going to do what the thread's going to do. So we want it to squeeze together, but we want our knife to have room in there to come in and out. And we want it to be snug at this point. We can work on it being a little too snug, but it's hard to make it tighter. So at this point you want to make sure that it's fitting in there well. Check on your knife blade where it was laying. Make sure it's looking right. Alright, and we're going to glue this down. So we'll do that next. We've got our glue here. I'm going to glue on something that's not something that I want, so we'll put some paper towel down, or a piece of cardboard would be even better. But we're going to glue both pieces of this. Again, contact cement is my preferred choice, but super glue will work. You know, any kind of glue will work really. And we're trying not to make a mess with this glue. We don't want this glue on the front of our sheath. We don't want it on the inside where the knife blade is going to be. Just want it where that line is. And then we're going to glue the right side here, so it's the flesh side is what we're wanting to glue on this part. We're only going to glue it to one side at this point, and then we'll re-look at it, make sure we're right, and we'll glue the other side. But got to get the glue on the right portion at this point here. Try not to get glue all over everything. This glue is stringy today. Let's see. We got our glue down. We just got to wait about 5 minutes. Alright, our glue is about tacky here, so we're going to stick it together. And once you get that down, then you want to take your nail, or I use this little scratch-all tool, but your nail will certainly work. It's in my drill, or even your frickin' iron will work. But you want to scratch up this top grain on this whelp here. I don't know if y'all can see what I'm doing, but I'm just scratching this a little bit. And we want to scratch that up some. You could even use your needle, anything that's sharp, just to make some hash marks in this. We want our glue to stick to this. Glue doesn't stick to that top grain very well, so we just want to get some marks in that. And like I said, we can use our pricking iron. It's sharp, probably faster too. Alright, so we've got our pricking iron up, scratched up. We're going to check this one more time just to make sure where we're wanting it, and we're going to glue it down. So we're wanting it level with this edge, so we're going to go ahead and glue that at this point. Try to keep the strings off of it. And we just want to make sure we got enough glue on this that this thing's going to stick, because once we stick it in one spot, it's hard to put any glue back underneath the other spot. So I generally put a good coat of glue on here. We don't want puddles of glue anywhere, but we want a good coat of glue on this so that it'll actually stick. And we want that on both sides. If you see any dry spots right away, put you a little more glue on it. Alright, we're going to wait another 5 minutes and we'll come back and stick that part together. Alright, it's been another 5 minutes or so. Our glue is not quite tacky this time, but I think it'll work. We're going to stick this together, matching up the edges. Try not to get any glue on our front especially. Go ahead and glue that thing down good. At this point, if you had some a little bit of a weight, put this inside of a book, or put this with a little bit of weight on it, wouldn't hurt. You don't have to let this dry forever, but a good hour on this would be helpful. This side we went right ahead right away because it was small, but this is a larger piece, so we want it to be sure and get it glued down all the way. And at this point we want to trim up these edges. We can do that with our knife and our sandpaper, and you just want to trim up the edge and make it the shape, whatever shape you want it to be, that shape. So you can use your knife. It'll take you several cuts to go all the way through this thick a piece, but just take your time with that and cut it down, and then sand it up and get up any little bumps that you want to. At this time, if you have a belt sander, would be a great time to break that thing out, and you can run this on the belt sander and you can flatten all this off really nicely and make a nice curve. But you can do it just with the knife and the sandpaper provided, not a problem. And we'll show you that. So I'd rather this be dry a little bit more, but we're just going to go ahead for the video and cut this. And when you're cutting it, you want it to make sure you're cutting all three sections. You want a good straight section. See, right here is cut right. This up here is not quite yet. And I may have to get something back here to lay this up on, like a little board would be good. I may even put my little piece of leather under here so I'm not cutting my mat. But we're going to get that so we can cut this. There we go, that's better. All the way through. Don't have to do it all at one time. But there's that part done. Y'all can see that that's nice and flat. And we're just going to work this all the way around. And we're going to come back with our sandpaper and just sand up any little hairy bits or any little bits that are off. Alright. So it's going to take a few minutes and I'm going to just do that for you. Alright, I've just taken a few minutes and cut this off flat. Try to cut straight down. Sometimes you get kind of at an angle. That your sandpaper can help you get that back right. When you're sanding, a lot of times your top grain will roll up a little bit. Your sandpaper doesn't want to cut it on the edge like this. So you take your sandpaper and you come back across. I'm tilting it. I don't know if you can see that. I'm tilting it and I'm just taking it off the edge, and that'll cut off that little piece that wants to roll up on you. And if you're using a belt sander, it'll do the same thing. It'll sand the inside easy, but the outside doesn't seem to sand the top grain part. So come back with your little piece of sandpaper and just rub that, and it'll kind of cut it off. You can do it on both sides. I'm not scratching up the top grain. I'm just cutting the corner off, basically. And so then you can take your little sandpaper and just make sure that you don't have any lumps and bumps. Your knife, particularly this style of knife, doesn't want to cut a curve very great, especially deep like this is. And so you're going to have some little lumps and bumps along the way. So take your sandpaper, take your time, and just go back through and just knock all them little lumps and bumps off. Make sure it's flat and even looking. Now, at this point, we can round the edge again, like we did on this, all this out here, both sides. That's what we would want to do. But prior to rounding our edge this time, maybe we'll take our little nail and we'll scratch us a line to drive by. And we've got plenty of whelp in here. I've got probably 3/4 of an inch of whelp in here. So if I want to, and I've got plenty of thread, I can make 2 lines down through here if I want to. Depends on what kind of knife it is and how tight it's fitting. Usually I'll just put one about 1/4 of an inch in, and then I'll try the knife once I get that sewn. You don't want to put your knife in here now. It'll pop the glue loose. And my glue is still not quite dry, but we got time issues today. So I'm going to do our little finger trick. We're going to hold our nail at a distance here, 1/4 of an inch or thereabouts, and we're just going to make us a little light line to follow. It doesn't have to be much of a line, just a little line. And we're going to follow it with our pricking iron then. I don't know if y'all can see that or not. We'll tilt it, maybe you can see it. It's just a little light line. If that line bothers you, you can always do it on the back. Now the problem with doing it on the back is when you're punching your holes through with either your drill or your hammer, you take a risk. A lot of times you keep real even because you've got the tops of them marked with our pricking iron. But when you come through, if you're coming through from either way, but if you come through from the back, sometimes your nail like leans, and so that'll make your stitching line look uneven. Wherever you're using your pricking iron, it's going to look as even as it's going to be. And then on the back side, if you go off a little bit, it doesn't show quite as much. But like I said, we're going to run one set of stitching on this. We'll bring our knife out and we'll put it in after that and see how tight it is. If we need to run another set of stitching to make it tighter, we can do that. But we're just basically going to do the same thing we just did with the back. I will have it up on something like this, because once you have your belt loop attached, it's not flat anymore. It's harder to drive with, harder to hold. So it's good if you have a little board or something that you can put this on, and makes it more level. Alright, we got our holes drilled. So we're going to measure our string again here, our thread. We're going to go about like that. Call that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're just going to go ahead and go 6 this time. Make sure we got a plenty. We ran a little short on that other one, primarily because it was a small thing, I have a feeling. But we still have plenty of string if we want to make another row of these. If we have to, make it tighter. And then we're just going to go through the same process, threading our needle. Threading our needles. And if you have a candle or some beeswax, this would be the time to go ahead and put you a little bit on here. I do, so I'm going to use it. You don't have to, it already has some on it, but I always put a little extra on. It seems to make it hold better, a little bit better. And again, just take your needle itself and kind of flatten that end of it. See if it'll show on this dark. And then take your eye, Stick it through there. And then stick it through the middle of your string. See what we got here? And pull it over. And twist this dude up. And that's one end. We're going to start on about our third hole in. Go up to the top and then back down. So we're going to level these up. Pick this one up, and again just go around it one time and back down this hole that it came out of. Sometimes easier than said than others. Now see, I tried to, it was poking through the string. We don't want to go through the middle of the string. It won't pull tight that way, so we want to make sure that we're not just poking through the middle of the string. So if we see that happening, we're going to stop. And so at this point, we want to check and make sure that we've got them up here pretty level. We're off a smidge, but I think that'll work. So we'll go back down. We're at the top hole now. Top hole now. Take this one and wrap it around. Wrap it around. Poke it back in there. Alright. And as you can see, we're at the top hole. We're just going to work our way back down. We get down here, we can go all the way to the end and then back up 3. Alright. We got down here to the very end. And we are coming back, and it's getting tighter because we're going through holes that have already been sewn. And so we're going to get our pliers here, and we're going to be gentle with the pliers. We're not going to pull them sideways. I'm going to grab them right on the end here and pull straight through. Pull that tight, and we're going to go up about 3 stitches. That was the second stitch. And sometimes it's tight going, even starting, so you can't get your pliers on it, so you can turn it upside down and push down. And then you can grab a hold of it, pull, and then wrap your other string around. And get it go down in the same hole sometimes. You pull your strings tight. And you got options. I generally pull it to the back and tie it back here and do it just like we did this. That works fine. Some people will take their and try to get their needles to come up in the middle here and tie it into one of the seams. That seems to put a pucker in it for my taste. Since we've drilled these holes with the nail and not a drill bit, it's just pressed the fibers apart. So once we get it all the way sewn back and tied, we'll take our little hammer again and we'll beat those threads back down, and it will actually push those holes together. So the knot actually isn't doing much of the tying or holding. It's the actual leather that holds the threads. It's not really the knot. So, and you can do basically just an overhand knot here. That's all I generally do with it, is on the back side do the overhand knot. and then I'll trim it up pretty close, and then we will burn it just like we did before. Get it out here away from the leather. Just get it on fire there and burn it down. And then need something smooth to beat it against, so we're going to use our leather. My punch board has little bumps on it, so we don't want to use that. And then we can just take from the back side and just beat that back down. And what that's doing is closing up those holes. And so then our sheath is basically done. We can round over the corners here if we want to with our sandpaper. We can smooth it up some more if it's got out of whack as we've sewn it. It shouldn't, since we've glued it. We can leave it alone. We can go back and dye this, which is what I'm going to do, is go back and dye this. Alright, we're going to sand this just a little bit. Get it back right like we had it. Pull this edge off. Okay. So all I'm going to do is get my dye. And I saved my dauber from before. I just got it on with my little rubber band around my container here. This is the same color dye. Now you have some options you can use if you want to buy 2 bottles of dye. A lot of people will dye their edges a different color. That's popular to do. But we just want to do the edge this time. We don't want to get it all over everything. We certainly don't want it running. But we want to do all the edge. Get it everywhere. Sometimes it's hard to get down in the little hole that we left. Sure you're getting the edges. Just make sure you're getting it everywhere and it was looking even as a color. The main thing. And then once we've got that done, we'll take us a rag and wipe it off. We'll dye back up out the way. And a rag again. And we'll just wipe this off. Just the old t-shirt. And since we've got our old t-shirt out here, we'll just buff this a little bit. And you can buff up your leather. Make it look a little better. And that's basically our sheath done. Now, our knife will fit down in here. It is tight enough, but we're going to show you a process to make it form fit into this and make it look like it's shaped just to fit the knife, and it will make it a little tighter as well. So the next step is we're going to take some saran wrap and wrap our knife up, because we don't want to get our knife wet, and we're going to wet our sheath down, wrap our knife up, put it in here, take our fingers and manipulate the leather down around this so that it forms this handle and leave it overnight. Alright, I'll just go saran wrap, cling wrap, whatever you want to call it. We're going to take our knife, and this is specific, so you can't use this any knife. You got to use the knife that's made for your sheath now. Or your sheath's made for that knife. And we're wanting to, right here at the handle and the blade junction, we want that to be snug. We can wrap over the ends, so, but we want that junction to be form-fitting, I guess is what we would call it. And we want this to be fit down here good. Don't want to have so much on there that it changes the shape of the handle. Alright, and the next step is, I'm just going to use a bottle of water, but usually I would run this inside and run it in the sink. And we're going to run it on the inside, on all the outside. We want it to get totally submerged with water now. So we're just going to do it out here in the shop with a bottle of water. We want to get it all wet because it's gonna change the color of our leather if we just try to wet part of it, not the others. So we're just going to get it all wet and make sure it's all good wet, so the color will stay even. And we're going to let this set up for a few minutes. This wet sheath, we're just going to let it soak in a little while, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And we're going to wipe off any excess water that's on it right now on the outside so that it doesn't discolor anything. Just wipe it all off. And we're going to let that leather soak up that water for just a minute or two, a couple of minutes. Alright, we've got our sheath a couple of minutes to soak up. We're going to put our knife down in here. We've got to make sure that it's pointing the right way and that everything is the correct orientation. You know, don't flip it over that way. This is the knife blade itself. So we're going to put it down in here. We're going to make sure it's against this back side here, right here. And then we're going to mash it down out here in the front. And we're going to make sure that we're getting it right against that knife handle. And we're just going to manipulate this a little bit here and get this to where it sits down in there tight against it, tight as we can get it. And we'll just rub it with our fingers over and over again until it's kind of formed to that handle as best we can. And we want it to be tight to it. And what we'll do, we'll rub on this for just a few minutes, and then we'll actually take the knife out and we'll rub it a little bit more so it gets a little bit snugger than what it is right now, because the knife handle's in there. So we'll just rub on it just a little bit with the knife gone, and then we'll let it dry overnight, and that will shrink it usually. And like I said, we have enough room here. If we need to, we can run another set of stitching down here all the way down if we want, or just pour the way down where the handle is. Depends on what kind of design we want, but we've got plenty of room there to do that with. And sometimes it needs that if it's too floppy. This thick of leather usually is not a problem. It will stay once it dries back out. But we're going to rub on this thing pretty good here. But we want this to be down in here. And we're going to set this aside, and I'm going to let this dry about an hour like this. And then I'm going to take the knife out, and I'm going to come back and rub around this same section again without the knife in it. And then we'll let it dry overnight without the knife in it. Alright, the next day we've let our sheath dry overnight, we're gonna unwrap our knife. We put the knife in there and let it dry for about an hour yesterday, and then we let it dry overnight without the knife in it. All right, so here's our sheath. Here's our knife. And the first time you put it in, it may be tight. There we go. Alright, there's our sheath. Like I say, if we feel it is too loose, this one's not, but if we feel it's too loose, we can always put us a little extra row of stitches right through here, or we can run it all the way down again, either way, whatever you like. But if it's too loose, we can always add some more stitches. But that's basically it. The only thing I do after this is we can burnish the edge if we want to. We take a little bit of water and put on here and rub it with like a hammer handle or any kind of tool handle that's smooth. I usually use one of these type things, but any piece of wood that's smooth, you can burnish your edge. I also will, I've got a little homemade top coat here, which is nothing but beeswax and walnut oil. Walnut oil you can find in the grocery store with the olive oil and that kind of thing. And it's basically 50% olive oil and 50% beeswax, and I just melt it in the microwave and apply it with a paper towel. So that's basically it. We can show you burnishing here real quickly. We just get you a little bit of, don't need a lot of water on your edge, just water will work. They make other things to do this with, but traditionally water was what they used. And like I say, any kind of smooth piece of wood, a hammer handle that I've got here. And the idea is to make it go fast, and it will smooth up that leather. And you kind of tilt it. And it kind of pushes the fibers back together. And you generally do this before you put any top coats on, so it will do what it's supposed to do. But as you can see there, that slicked it right up. I don't know if you can see it. I can see it is shiny. And you can do it up here too if you want. A little bit of water. Like I say, don't take much water on this part. So. But you can do that all the way around. And that's basically your sheath made. We're going to warm up our top coat here. And of course you can buy stuff that'll do what we're doing with our top coat. All we're trying to do is seal the leather up from moisture now. And so snow seal, you know, needs foot oil, mink oil, anything that you put on your shoes or on leather coats and stuff would be fine for putting a top coat on this if you already have that kind of thing. Alright, I'll show you this. This is our homemade beeswax walnut oil finish. I just set it on top of a wood stove here, got it liquid, and all we're going to do is just dip us a corner of this down in here, and all it does is seal up the leather from water and basically water from getting into it. And we want to put this everywhere on it, and it is warm right now. But we want to put it up underneath our belt loop. Get some underneath there. So it's sealed as well. And this just keeps your water from soaking in it. We'll like I mentioned before, Snow Seal will do the same thing. You know, all the different kinds of seals that you can put on your boots, on your leather coats, will do the same thing. And we'll put it out, pull it out, and put some down on the inside here a little bit too, as much as we can reach. And what I like about this stuff is it's all natural. It doesn't, nobody's allergic to it really. It's food safe. If you chewed on it, it wouldn't hurt you. So. But you can use anything. And then once you put it on, and then just buff it with a clean paper towel. And there's our custom sheath for our custom knife. Now, if you want to see how to make the knife, we have another series of videos, and we have another kit that you make your own knife. So if you want to see that, we'll put a link in the description below. I'll try to put us a link in the page for our knife build. Get you started on that. But good luck with your leather. If you have any questions or concerns or don't understand something, feel free to comment in the comment section. I'll try to answer anybody's questions. But this is a good little kit. Gives you the basics for you to get your sheath work done. You could also make a pistol holster for a small pistol, like a 380, something in that caliber, 25, some small 22s. If you're looking for, you know, something bigger, then you have to get a bigger piece of leather. But the stitching and the pricking iron and that kind of thing will certainly work for all of your different kind of leather projects. You can make other types of sheaths as well for pocket knives and what have you. And I may go ahead and put me a stitch or two right here, just where that's at, just to keep that a little tighter. It's not loose now, but over time that may open up on us. So we'll put us another stitch or two in that. This knife and sheath will be for sale on Etsy pretty soon. This is middle of February. By the time I get this edited, it'll probably be 1st of March. So. And I have some other knives that are similar to this, same type of construction on Etsy, and I actually have some forged knives, and we're going to be doing some videos on forging knives here shortly. Alright, don't forget to subscribe and like.